Here I am holding about 50 zebra mussels, and underneath them is a living clam, stuck carrying the weight of all these extra shells. Gross, right? But what's all the fuss about these things? What are zebra mussels? You may think they're just some freshwater creature casually existing in an ecosystem. Well, you'd be wrong. They may be small, but they can spread fast, overtaking lakes and rivers. And this leads to the question, should we be concerned about zebra mussels in our Canadian waters? Before we get to that big question, let's take a step back and ask, what are zebra mussels? Zebra mussels, also known as Dreissena polymorpha, were originally found in European waters in the Black and Caspian Seas. Zebra mussels are little clams that stick themselves to anything in the water. They can grow on things like larger clams, rocks, docks, and boats. They spread to Canada in the late 80s from ships traveling from the European waters. They quickly spread to the Great Lakes, and now in Canada they are most seen in the southern areas, being most apparent in Ontario. There are actually two different invasive mussels that are important to look out for, one being zebra mussels, of course, and the other being quagga mussels. They're pretty much the exact same thing. Other than looks, they both serve the same life purpose, to reproduce. Now, how do you identify zebra and quagga mussels? Well, it's pretty easy to decipher the invasive mussels to the native mussels. You see, the invasive mussels latch on to other objects, usually being the native mussels. Zebra mussels are usually a 1/8 of an inch to a full 2 inches, whereas native mussels can range from 3 to 5 inches, pretty much the length of your fingers. You'll see here that zebra mussels have a dark zigzag sort of pattern, and the quagga mussels have a lighter base color with the dark rings. How do these tiny buggers spread? Well, they spread by boats. When traveling in Ontario, you must let your boat sit out of water for 2 to 7 days in direct sunlight before transferring it into new waters. Although, zebra mussels can last up to 18 days without being in the water. That's why it's essential to clean the exterior of your boat in all the different nooks and crannies to make sure there are no invasive species that can transfer into new waters. Even in the smallest crevices of your boat, you can find zebra mussels just about anywhere. When people don't clean or quarantine their boats, they're allowing for potential invasive species to spread into other lakes and rivers. And that's how we end up with waters infested with these zebra mussels. Zebra mussels are able to overtake bodies of water, going from 1 to 1 million within just over a year. But how are they able to do this? Zebra mussels' entire life purpose is to spread. They live about 3 to 9 years, living their lives to overtake fresh bodies of water. After 1 year of life, a zebra mussel is able to reproduce. When breeding season comes in the springtime, since the water has warmed up enough for them, zebra mussels can release 40,000 to 1 million eggs. It only takes about 3 to 5 days after fertilization for the eggs to release. Then a month goes along, and they latch onto a surface that they'll live the rest of their life on. What are zebra mussels doing to the water? Other than crowding and overtaking the water's environment, zebra mussels function in a certain way that removes all the good plankton, which helps negative bacteria grow. When removing that good plankton, it creates clearer water, allowing for sunlight to reach deeper regions and help the algae toxins grow. Algae toxins can cause harm to humans, fish, and other animals surrounding the bodies of water. These algae blooms can be many different colors, but mostly commonly seen as vivid bright green. It removes oxygen from the lakes and rivers, potentially killing the water creatures. Algae blooms can cause humans harm by ingestion, so whether it's by catching fish or drinking water, you can get severely sick. I've seen it happen to myself and family members after swimming in algae-infested waters. I've gotten sick for a few days just from intaking some lake water. Another way they harm us is by damaging water in hydro facilities. Zebra mussels and quagga mussels are known to block pipes, which racks up operating prices, which then affects us for power costs. I came across an article by the British Columbian government that goes over the zebra mussels in their area. The main part that shocked me the most was the damage costs. The infestation of zebra mussels back in 2013 would have cost them estimated $43 million in repairs, which now yearly is costing them $64 to $129 million. All this loss of money is coming from the maintenance of marinas, property value losses, hydroplant damages, and water-based tourism numbers. After doing the research, I wanted to get my hands dirty and do a little bit of hands-on observations. So I went to my cottage, which within the past few years has been overtaken by zebra mussels. So I went on to collect zebra mussels and took some time to inspect them. I left them in the sun for several hours, came back and noticed that the zebra mussels on the top layer had dried and their mouths had been opened. The others underneath were closed and still making some squeaking noises. To see their reaction, I sprayed some water onto the dried up ones. They then began to close their mouths and wiggle around. There were even a few small little species dried up around the mussels, like crayfish and other unidentifiable species. So it's clear that some species do find a home within the zebra mussel ecosystem, but they aren't helping out so much since they aren't contributing to the fish's environment. Since the mussels are so small and so strong, fish aren't able to open up their shells as a food source, and they only make it harder for fish to obtain native mussels as food sources since they overcrowd the clams, making it harder to open. How do you feel about the recent overpopulation of zebra mussels in your lake?
Well, on the positive, they've significantly reduced the clam population of our lake, which clams can be annoying for swimming, potentially cutting your feet, but apparently the long-term effects of zebra mussels is not a good thing, so that's not really worth it. But it does pose a problem for boating, having to keep your boats in your own lake and not being able to spontaneously go into other lakes without having to take them out early and let them sit for a while, or having to take the boats to wash them before putting them in another lake.
Do you worry about the future of your lake?
I wouldn't go quite that far. Obviously, I think the lake will still survive, but as to what the exact effects are, I'm not completely in the know, but it has been reported that it does have some effects on the lake, so it is a concern.
How do we get rid of them? While there is no definite way of removing the invasive species, the only way to stop them is by properly cleaning and quarantining your boats. Being smart about how we transfer our watercrafts is the only way we can preserve and save our Canadian lakes and rivers. If you find either zebra or quagga mussels, the Canadian government has a website page with everyone's provinces for reporting links if you see them. Remember, clean, drain, and dry your boats, and let's stop the transferring of this invasive species.